This episode was sponsored by Wix.
Are goats OP? Yeah, pretty OP.
Okay, hear me out. I bet a lot of you are like, really? A video on goats? You're running out of ideas, huh? No, absolutely not. The guild that goats belong to, Caprine, is the guild that developed some of the best equipment in the game, including some best-in-slot headgear. They are excellent one-on-one duelists, often being able to defeat opponents that would squash them if not for their special abilities and excellent PvP techniques. First, their special abilities. Now, not all of these are directly combat related, but all of them are awesome. For example, their absurdly effective climbing ability. So, when trying to spec into the climbing skill tree, you generally want to pick abilities like hooks, claws, cling pads, prehensile tails, or something like that. Caprines have none of this. Honestly, I don't know how, but they've managed to spec into some pretty high-level climbing abilities without wasting any evolution points on the classic climbing perks. It really is something special. Their hooves are perfect for digging into mountainsides, and their slender form allows them to balance in places that other players would have no way of getting to. Now, this doesn't mean that they're completely safe from fall damage. Climbing as a movement option in the mountain servers will always be risky, and personally, I'd opt for a flying build if I were to choose that as my home server. But Caprines definitely have the best mid-weight mammal build for the job. Their special hooves negate the mobility penalty that other players, such as the ones hunting them, incur. So as long as they stay alert and don't get ambushed, they should have no trouble evading other ground-based predator builds. Another ability that they have when it comes to predator evasion is their eyes. There are quite a few different eye options you can choose when you're creating your character. For example, if you're playing as an ambush predator, you probably want vertical slits, since this grants an accuracy bonus. Or if you're mostly active at night, you probably want pupils as large as possible. That way you don't incur the accuracy debuff from the darkness. Or if you're a cuttlefish, you probably want squiggly lines for pupils, because... honestly, I don't know why they have this. Anyway, goats opted for a horizontal pupil, which gives them a much wider field of view, letting them see enemies that are approaching from behind. Their eyes also have the ability to rotate in their head, so that they can maintain surveillance even when they tilt their head down to graze. Okay, now for their main combat ability. Caprines have an extremely powerful defensive ability called Cranial Cushion. This ability gives them near total immunity to blunt force damage, as long as they block the incoming attack with their head. Attacks that would one-shot most players can be shrugged off by Caprines, allowing them to fend off more powerful builds and sometimes even outright win duels with them. Of course, this does have its limitations. Like I said before, this only defends them from attacks from the front. They're still completely vulnerable from the sides. So if your opponent manages to cross you up and get around your defense, you're quite vulnerable. This also leaves you highly vulnerable to team strategies, as it's impossible to block attacks from two different directions at once. It also does eventually run out, so know your limits before you challenge another Caprine player to a duel. But overall, super useful passive ability to have, and definitely elevates their viability in the current meta a bit. But what really gets them into high tier is their signature move, Skull Bash. Most herbivore mains stick with the standard charge attack to deal damage. Some also spec into Kick, which is really good since a lot of the smaller rushdown players tend to focus their attacks on the hindquarters. But for maximum damage against a single target, the Caprine's special technique is necessary. You have to briefly switch to the upright stance before initiating the attack, so obviously it has a lot of startup lag, but if you land the hit, it can be absolutely devastating. I think Caprines average around B tier, with a few low tier and a few high tier builds. For example, I definitely put the Fainting Goat into F tier, since fainting is perhaps one of the worst defensive moves in the game. I'd also rate the Domestic Sheep build as F tier, due to its absolutely abysmal intelligence. And I do mean abysmal. Sheep have such low intelligence that they can even be defeated by bramble bushes. If you're a herbivore player and you get beat by your prey, you should probably choose a new main. As for high tier Caprines, first there's the Mountain Goat, which has the highest mobility of any build in the mountain server. Next there's the Bighorn Sheep, which has the highest power stat of any Caprine, and is the one known for pioneering the Skull Bash technique. Last there's the Ibex, another excellent duelist build that trades a little bit of power for increased range on its horn hitbox. So hopefully now you understand that Caprines like goats and sheep deserve just as much respect as other.
They're pretty good.
If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and a comment of what you want to see next.